Hey, really the only thing that gon' be normal is distribution. Normal folks gon' infuse some. Optimize your lineups and you feed the rest, you mute them. Turning it up, these numbers are loud. Peeping this game from a nimbus is wild. Making it rain. While I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bell, I'm the best rest till into the next well. Guess I got next still. Best bell, I'm the best rest till into the next well. Guess I got next still.
And welcome to the BestBell Fantasy Football podcast and live stream brought to you by the Fantasy Football Plus Network. I'm Bradley Stalder here tonight. We're going to talk about some waiver wire. We're into week 10 already. It's wild. We are more than halfway through the season. We're about 2/3 way through the regular season. And then we get into weeks 15, 16, 17. It's going to be wild in the playoffs. It's going to be wild in our best ball leagues. I'm so excited to get into some of these really crucial waiver pickups. We saw some significant changes in the usage of some players. We also saw how players are being used now that there are injuries to their teammates. Look, we're going to dive into almost a dozen players that you need to be considering. Varying levels of depth, depends on what you need, depends on your league size, of course. And I'm going to be here through this night and with all the videos that I'm posting to get you through. So make sure you guys are liking and subscribing this video. You're sharing on the channel. It's great. We've got some great stuff, great content in store for you here on Best Ball Fantasy Show. That's right. We're going to kick it off with a player who has ascended both because of his play and because of opportunity, and that is Demario Douglas. Demario Douglas is available in about 72% of leagues. He's picked up, some got some early Demario Douglas, but this is a player over the last 3 weeks has at least 5 targets, and on the season, a 78.4 PFF receiving grade, a 1.81 yards per route run. That is respectable, and we can't ignore what he's been doing. I mean, he's a top 30 wide receiver, given that Devontae Parker is out, given that Kendrick Bourne is now out for the season with an ACL injury. Demario Douglas is the number one wide receiver for the New England Patriots, so we need to be picking him up, especially if you need spot starts. Let's say that you have Tyreek or Tua, Tyreek or Jalen Waddle on bye this week. You have Rashee Rice on bye. Demario Douglas can step in and get you 5, 6, 7 targets. This past week against Washington, 5 for 55 on 7 targets. Previous weeks, 5 for 25 on 6 targets, 4 for 54 on 5 targets. This is a player that has gotten schemed touches, not just in the receiving game, but also in the rushing game. He has at least 1 attempt in each of the last 3 games, and he's averaging 7.3 yards per carry on the season. So Demario Douglas is getting used everywhere, and we can't be ignoring how Bill Belichick is employing Demario Douglas. So let's get in on Demario Douglas on the season. He's 5'8", 192, 6th round pick out of Liberty, 4.44 speed. Demario Douglas, his best player profiler comp is Shi Smith, but this is a player who's getting the opportunity with the injuries ahead of him on the season, a 26.3% target rate. We have to like that. And then a few other stats I wanted to share. 28th in yards per route run on the season, 11th in target separation, and 33rd in route win rate. So he's getting the wins on his routes, and as he's running more, we will see Demario Douglas continue to improve as a receiver. In fact, 4 of his last 5 games, he's been at least a 70 PFF receiving grade. So he's played well. He's won his routes. He's looked good on the film. It's clear that the Patriots are using him in an increased role, given the Devontae Parker injury, given the Kendrick Bourne injury, and there's not really much else on this New England offense. So be in on getting Demario Douglas as a flex play moving forward. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and we are not going to call you desperate if you are considering starting Demario Douglas here in week number 10. Keaton Mitchell. Keaton Mitchell is the next running back or next player that I want you to be adding off of your waiver wire. How can we not? This is a player, 9 rushes in the game against Seattle, 138 yards, 15 yards per carry. He had the really nice 60-yard rush, 60-yard touchdown. And look, a 93 PFF rush grade. We can't ignore that. He outcarried Gus Edwards. And Gus Edwards got 2 touchdowns. But Keaton Mitchell, the undrafted free agent out of East Carolina, 4.37 speed. I mean, he was a deep cut favorite among many fantasy football analysts. I was middle of the road on Keaton Mitchell because, look, maybe it's Justice Hill, maybe it's Gus Edwards. Keaton Mitchell also spent time on the IR. He was buried behind 2 veterans. In addition to J.K. Dobbins, he really wasn't on the best ball radar this past offseason, except for maybe taking a couple late dart throw flyers on him. But now that we're in season long and redraft season, Keaton Mitchell is a must add on a Baltimore Ravens team that is willing to hand the ball off around the goal line, around the end zone. Lamar Jackson is just happy that he's winning. Lamar Jackson's just happy that he's getting the dub. And so it doesn't matter if it's going to Justice Hill or Gus Edwards or Keaton Mitchell around the goal line. Lamar Jackson is just happy that he's winning. And frankly, like a happy Lamar Jackson means that this team is going to continue to ascend. It also will preserve Lamar Jackson from these. It seems like every year Lamar Jackson suffers these second half of the season injuries that cost him 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. So if he can not get hit at the goal line or in other places, Keaton Mitchell, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill are going to be the options to preserve Lamar Jackson. And we have to think that Mitchell, given what he just did, we cannot ignore it. And the Baltimore Ravens won't ignore it either. It would not surprise me. It won't take a lot for Keaton Mitchell to really, continue to elevate his role. He already had 9 attempts, 10 snaps on the season. But let's look at his college stats just for those who are interested and hadn't heard much of Keaton Mitchell before his big game on Sunday. Keaton Mitchell last season, over 1,300 rushing yards. There were a couple games for East Carolina where he had 27, 29 rushes, 21 rushes, 93.5 PFF rush grade last year, 3.48 yards after contact per attempt. That's really good. Like that we'll take that, So he's got the speed, he's got the good rush grade, yards after contact per attempt. And he rushed for 2 straight seasons over 1,100 yards at East Carolina, improving each year, 77, 79, and then eventually 93 PFF rush grade. And those are the types of things, too, that you want to see in a player's profile. Not only do they peak in college, do they peak very highly, like 93 rush grade is very good. We also want to continue to see them ascend. That is a telltale sign that they're a player that we want to be targeting. They're continuing to improve their game, because we, just like us at our jobs or anywhere else, we want to improve. These NFL players want to improve, and they learn and they're coached. And so that's a sign. It's one of the signs to us that this is a player who is going to learn the system. He is going to learn how to operate in the Baltimore Ravens offense in a larger capacity. And he's shown that on a smaller scale. And he's now inserted himself into the Ravens offense. He got 9 carries. You don't just, no Joe Schmo, can just earn 9 carries for the Baltimore Ravens. So this is a player that we should be putting significant fab in at this point. He has potential to be a league winner. We saw Gus Edwards in the previous 2 weeks be a top 6 running back on the week, each of the last 2 weeks. And so if it is Keaton Mitchell to be the answer for the Baltimore Ravens, how can we ignore what other running backs in this system have done? Keaton Mitchell is now a must add for your week 10 waiver wire, given his potential upside. The median outcome for Keaton Mitchell is very simple. It is very simple. It is that he gets 7 to 10 carries every game. Sometimes he has explosive games, sometimes he doesn't. And he's going to be limited and kept ceiling. That is very much a median range of outcomes for Keaton Mitchell, but there is exciting upside given what we saw against Seattle and also his ascension as a runner from college and how quickly the Baltimore Ravens were willing to just insert him into the offense after he was activated from the injured reserve. So add Keaton Mitchell to your fantasy lineups. The next one is a less obvious or more obvious one. We should have been picking up Tazi Spears years and years and years ago, like eons ago. Now, I know he had a bad game, 5 for 18. He had some receiving work as well, but Tazi Spears only rostered in 37% of leagues. How is this possible? This is arguably the most valuable handcuff in the NFL. Derrick Henry has been crushing lately, but Tazi Spears has also played just fine behind the big dog. And if the big dog goes down in any capacity, and we've seen it in previous seasons, Tazi Spears is the guy. 4.08 yards after contact per attempt, an 81 PFF rush grade on the season, 5.5 yards per attempt. This is a player that I've been touting for weeks needs to be picked up off of waivers, and I still don't understand why Tazi Spears is not rostered as much as he is. So pick up Tazi Spears. He's arguably the most valuable handcuff that exists on planet Earth at this point. Pick him up. He's not startable yet, but this is the type of player that you'll be like, well, if his contingency upside is massive. We've seen what the big dog can do in a partial role. Imagine what Tazi Spears can do in a full role. So Tazi Spears, add him. There is no reason he should be at 37.1% rostered. It should be 100% rostered. If Derrick Henry's 100% rostered, so should Tazi Spears. So pick up Tazi Spears. Massive, massive pickup. The next is Leonard Fournette, just recently signed off of free agency by the Buffalo Bills. Fournette, the former 4th overall pick out of LSU. Last year, 73 receptions, 523 yards, 6 total touchdowns. Latavius Murray is not the answer. Only a couple carries, only a couple touches in this past game. Leonard Fournette was inactive for the Sunday night game. However, I think that was just, he wasn't ready in time. It's fine. But the next week, I expect Leonard Fournette to be available. And this is a player we've seen James Cook struggle to access ceiling. We've seen Latavius Murray not be able to convert goal line touchdowns. I think the Bills are looking for another answer around the goal line to preserve Josh Allen, and especially because Allen is already and still dealing with his AC shoulder joint issue. You don't want Josh Allen taking so many hits around the goal line. He's already rushing a significant amount, but that's been dialed back. However, Latavius Murray has not been effective at converting those goal line rushes. And so Leonard Fournette, 6 foot, 228, just a big bruiser, but also a capable pass catcher, can just easily step in ahead of Latavius Murray. And that's what I would expect, is that over the next 2 weeks, Fournette will be able to convert some touchdowns that Latavius has not been able to, and also catch some passes. And James Cook is good, like outside the tackles. He's got great speed, but he is not a between the guards type of runner. He's just not built to handle those types of rushes. Leonard Fournette is Lombardi Lenny for a reason, right? He's able to handle the big hits from the defensive tackles, from the defensive ends and the linebackers. He is able to move the pile. And so with that BMI, 6', 228, dude is a force to be reckoned with. There's no way that we need to be leaving him on the waiver wire, given his ties to the Buffalo Bills offense, the role he can step into, just how many fantasy points Latavius Murray has left on the board for us. Leonard Fournette is more likely to convert those. I mean, it couldn't get much worse than what Latavius Murray has been doing from an efficiency standpoint. He is getting touches. I told you he'd be a thorn in the side of James Cook this past offseason. And with Damian Harris out, it's clear that the Bills really do need a between the tackles grinder. And Leonard Fournette, I think, is a more capable back at this point than Latavius Murray. So go pick up Leonard Fournette. Only 22% rostered at this point. That means he's probably available in your league. So go get him. Go get Leonard Fournette. All right, Jonnu Smith. Like, I've been touting Jonnu Smith. I've been telling you to pick up Jonnu Smith for eons, right? How can we not? I know he had one bad game against his former team, Tennessee. But let's look back. 6 targets, 8 targets, 6 targets, 7 targets, 5 targets. 3 targets against Tampa. Was usually tough against tight ends. 1 target against his former team, Tennessee. But then he's back at it with 6 targets, right? 100 receiving yards and a touchdown against Minnesota. Yes, Jonnu Smith. And especially with Drake London out, we don't know how long Drake London is going to be out. But I thought the beneficiary for this week number 9 game would be Kyle Pitts. In fact, it was Jonnu Smith. Smith 5 for 100 and the touchdown. Smith is at 1.94 yards per route run. That's better than a lot of the wide receivers I have on this list. That's better than Demario Douglas on the season. Jonnu Smith is a low-end tight end 1, high-end tight end 2 rest of the season, and we've seen the couple spike weeks that he's had. He's had one game with 95 receiving yards, another with 67, another with 100. He went 4 for 36 and a touchdown in another game, 4 for 47, 5 for 37. Like, that's what you're in a world where we are so desperate for tight end points. Jonnu Smith has reemerged as a fantasy relevant tight end. So let's be picking up Jonnu Smith, especially as bye weeks are hitting us. You might be looking for a Travis Kelce replacement, etc. Jonnu Smith, pick him up. He is a startable tight end moving forward. I'm going to give you a sneaky wide receiver that you may have forgotten about. You may have not realized that he plays for this team, but it is Zay Jones. Zay Jones has only played 3 games. And game number 1, he went 5 for 55 and a touchdown. Beautiful. Game 2 against Kansas City, Zay Jones almost had a touchdown. He was held scoreless. But in week number 5 against Buffalo, he left early, still scored a touchdown, 3 for 23. So we want to be picking up Zay Jones. He is a red zone threat, and he also keeps defenses honest. The existence of Zay Jones is good for everybody. It's good for Trevor Lawrence. It's good for Calvin Ridley. It's good for Zay Jones himself. It's good for our fantasy teams when we were drafting Zay Jones in like round number 12 or 13. Zay Jones is the player that we want to be picking up. 2 touchdowns in 3 games that he's played. Yeah. And looking at what he did last year, 82 for 823 and 5 touchdowns, 117 targets. He's averaged almost 6 targets per game, and he didn't play part of the 3rd game. So pick up Zay Jones as a flex play. The Jaguars are coming out of their bye. Zay Jones is another week removed from his knee issue that he's been recovering from. So people have forgotten about Zay Jones. Pick him up as a flex play. We know what he can do. He is a reliable wide receiver for a team that needs a little bit of help. This may hurt Evan Ingram, but Zay Jones is a player that we need to be picking up. And we can't ignore what he is even if we're disappointed by some of the efficiency metrics, only 62 PFF receiving grade, only a 0.89 yards per route run. But Zay Jones, remember, former second round pick out of East Carolina. Once again, the East Carolina represent this waiver wire. 80th percentile speed, 4.45, 40, 6'2", 200, a bigger bodied wide receiver that requires some defensive attention. So if Zay Jones returns, give me some more Calvin Ridley. Give me, and that'll hurt, I think, a little bit of Christian Kirk. The splits with Zay Jones versus not Zay Jones are stark for those other wide receivers and for Evan Ingram. So Zay Jones is a player available in 80% of leagues. Pick him up. He is especially in your deeper leagues, he's a flex play moving forward. I mentioned Demario Douglas as being a player that you need to be picking up, but another player in the New England offense that you can't be ignoring is Hunter Henry, right? Hunter Henry earned 7 targets with Devontae Parker and Kendrick Bourne out, 4 for 39 and the touchdown. He played 43 pass snaps. Those are the most since week number 2. So he's getting more pass snaps and running 91% of the routes. This is beautiful, right? I know he hasn't been super efficient again, only a 71 receiving grade and 1.12 yards per route run, but I think that's more attributed to the inefficiency of Mac Jones. If Hunter Henry gets back into the end zone and continues to do so as one of the favorite targets of Mac Jones, now that Bourne is out, I think Hunter Henry, especially as a big-bodied wide receiver. Remember, Demario Douglas, as much as we love his targets and we like his PPR upside, he is a smaller wide receiver who, while fast, is not as big and doesn't have the red zone authority that Hunter Henry does. Henry, remember, 6'5", 258, big wingspan, has historically put up some big touchdown numbers. Remember, in 2021 with New England, he had 9 touchdowns. Back in LA, he had 8 touchdowns back in 2016. So give me some Hunter Henry, 70% 70% available in your fantasy league. So pick him up for those who are desperate for fantasy tight end help. I'm surprised that this player isn't rostered more, and that is Khalil Shakir. Khalil Shakir, he's only 4.6% rostered, but over the last 3 weeks, with Dawson Knox out, Khalil Shakir, 4 targets, 4 receptions, 35 yards, 6 catches, 6 targets, 92 yards, 457 on 4 targets this past week. He is a flex play moving forward as long as Dawson Knox is out. Why does this matter? Because we've seen the Buffalo Bills only run with 1 tight end, right? The 11 personnel is very key now that Dawson Knox is out. So it's Dalton Kincaid, it's Khalil Shakir, it's Gabe Davis, and Stephon Diggs. So Khalil Shakir, now fantasy relevant and playing over Deontay Hardy, 36 pass snaps and 33 pass snaps over the last 2 weeks. Khalil Shakir is the clear play over the next 2 weeks as long as Dawson Knox is out. The Buffalo Bills are going to be running 11 personnel, and that includes Khalil Shakir playing a lot of snaps, getting a lot of looks, 10 targets over the last 2 games. Can't ignore that. This is what we wanted from the likes of Deontay Hardy, Trent Sherfield, but Khalil Shakir is the number 3 wide receiver right now. Ooh. We'll keep her rolling. We've got another wide receiver, a deep cut. You ready for a deep cut? I'm going to give you a deep cut. Not surprising, though. Maybe it's surprising. We'll see. Noah Brown. Noah Brown is being rostered in 1.4% of leagues. Now, before his big explosion game against Tampa, which, for the record, we are starting every single receiver against Tampa Bay moving forward. They have arguably the worst secondary in terms of fantasy points allowed. So they allow so many fantasy points. Noah Brown, 6'2", 215, out of Ohio State. He was drafted in the 7th round by the Dallas Cowboys, signed with the Houston Texans in free agency. And since Robert Woods has been out, Noah Brown has been a major beneficiary. 5, 4, and 6 targets over the last 3 weeks, 37, 57, and 153 receiving yards. Yes, no one really predicted Noah Brown to be like a top 12 wide receiver, but at the same time, Noah Brown, let's look at what he's done in the past. Last year, 73 targets for the Dallas Cowboys, 43 for 555. He had 3 touchdowns. Let's look at some of his big games in the past, because then you'll be able to tell that this is a player that you need to be picking up for your flex. Okay. Yeah, he was wide receiver 31 with 12.5 fantasy points back last year, week 14. He had 22.9 fantasy points, was the wide receiver 6. He went 6 for 49 on 110 air yards and 9 targets. That was week 15 against Jacksonville last year. So we saw some big games in 2022. And I said 70 targets in a Dallas Cowboys offense. We don't hate that. Okay. I mean, he was wide receiver 31 a couple years ago, 6 for 53 on 9 targets. So he will have the occasional blow up game. And Robert Woods is still dealing with his injury. And CJ Stroud is looking like a dark horse MVP candidate if the Houston Texans can get their wins straightened out. Noah Brown is a very, very interesting deep flex, and he's probably available in almost any sized league. If you're looking for somebody to give you 5 targets, 3 to 4 catches, and 50 yards as kind of a median moving forward, it's Noah Brown. But we've also seen historically Noah Brown put up 20-point games before. So it shouldn't have surprised us that Noah Brown had this within his range of outcomes. He has a 77 PFF receiving grade and 2.21 yards per route run on the season in his 4 games. Yeah, we need to be picking up Noah Brown. This is a very, very nice play and a deep cut play. So be picking up Noah Brown. He's worth picking up at this point, not only because of the big breakout, but also in the previous games, 2.38 yards per route run, 1.68 yards per route run. These are just fine. And now 38 pass snaps. Yeah, if Robert Woods is out, Noah Brown is the next play. So be picking up Noah Brown. Let's keep her rolling here. I got a couple more to share, and then I'll answer some questions at the end. You need to be picking up Ty Chandler. And I know. Should it be Dwayne McBride? Should it be Ty Chandler? Ty Chandler is clearly playing ahead of Dwayne McBride. We need to be picking up Ty Chandler in light of Cam Akers tearing his other Achilles. It's so heartbreaking. Cam Akers was playing better than Alexander Mattison. I think he deserved to get a little bit more run than what he did, but nevertheless, we can't help it. Ty Chandler is the play. 5th round pick out of North Carolina in 2022. So Ty Chandler, only 8 rushes on the season, 5.3 yards per carry, but he hasn't had any rushes over the last couple games. Yet it's Ty Chandler, who's probably the player that you want. Only a 62 PFF rush grade. We're still in the depth chart, putting and pegging Ty Chandler over Dwayne McBride. It wouldn't surprise me either if Minnesota goes out and just signs another running back, a breather back off the street. So we'll see if they choose to do that, or if they decide to just put Dwayne McBride as the running back 3. Nevertheless, it's still Ty Chandler as the probable handcuff to Alexander Mattison, who has not played well this year either. Madison has played pretty terribly. So I would just say that this means that we're going to be putting more stock in Josh Dobbs moving forward. Jaron Hall is dealing with the concussion. We'll talk about Dobbs here in a little bit, but Chandler is the major pickup here for us for Minnesota, given that the Cam Akers injury just occurred, and Akers is out for the season given the Achilles injury. All right, I'm going to give you guys another deep cut. You need some bye week fill-ins. You need some wide receiver help. Give me some Kyle Phillips, baby. Woo, this was a player long ago that I thought would become something, become the starting slot receiver for the Tennessee Titans. But there are two reasons why we want to be in on Kyle Phillips. One is he's coming off a 4 for 68 game against Pittsburgh. 89 PFF receiving grade in that game, 3.2 yards per route run. We like that. He looked like he was getting open. And we like what Will Levis has done. Will Levis has passed the eye test for us, even if he didn't throw for 4 touchdowns against Pittsburgh. He still eye test looked good enough, given that Tennessee offensive line is really bad, and the Pittsburgh Steelers were bringing pressure the whole night. Kyle Phillips, if you're looking for someone who just needs a pulse, he is a player, 5 targets, 4 receptions, 68 yards. I mean, last season, let's look at his metrics because they were very interesting. Kyle Phillips, 30.2% target rate in 2022 as a rookie, 13.4% target share as a rookie. And I think that as he's getting healthier and builds this chemistry with Will Levis, remember, Kyle Phillips was out on IR for the first 4 weeks. He dealt with injuries last season. So I think that this is a really deep cut player that can become a PPR eyebrow raise, because the second reason, not only did Kyle Phillips play well, but also Treylon Burks suffered a pretty gruesome head injury, and he's probably going to be out for a bit. This could be a short term. It could be a long term. I don't know how long Treylon Burks is going to be out, but this just means more DeAndre Hopkins, more Kyle Phillips, and maybe a sprinkling a little bit more of Chigakonkwo. So give me some Kyle Phillips, especially in your deep leagues where you need some people with a pulse. Kyle Phillips just played 22 pass snaps, ran 21 receiving pass snaps. So, and he's a slot receiver, probably going to be a safety valve for Will Levis. So give me some Kyle Phillips as a player who's going to get more opportunity due to the injury to Treylon Burks, but also who's coming off a pretty decent game and looked good himself, an 89 PFF receiving grade. So Kyle Phillips, deep cut receiver, 0.1% rostered. Get yourselves some Kyle Phillips for the playoff stretch. The last player I want to talk about tonight, and then I'll answer some of your all's questions, Josh Dobbs. We need to be picking up Josh Dobbs, baby. He didn't know the cadences. He didn't know the players' names that he was throwing to in Minnesota or at Atlanta while playing for the Vikings. And yet he completed 20 passes, threw for 158 yards, threw for 2 touchdowns. He didn't have a great passing grade, 68.4, but and his 7.5% turnover worthy play rate is really high. But his NFL passer rating, 101.8, very respectable. It was his 3rd highest NFL passer rate on the season when he didn't know almost anything. But I think this is also a testament to how bad Arthur Smith is, just allowing this guy off the street to have a comeback victory over him. But the reason why we want Josh Dobbs is the expectation that Justin Jefferson is going to eventually come back. I don't think Justin Jefferson is going to come back this week, but we do expect Justin Jefferson to be back this year, and that is great news for Josh Dobbs, who also has an ascending Jordan Addison and a reliable TJ Hawkinson. KJ Osborne, we're monitoring that situation because he also suffered a gruesome hit and had to be carted off the field. So we're monitoring the 3rd string receiver, KJ Osborne. But Josh Dobbs was able to make it happen with a bunch of scrubs and not knowing any of the play call, really. I mean, he did study an extra couple hours after practice to learn more of the playbook. But, Team doesn't know his cadences. He never took a snap at practice this past week and still was able to pull this off. So the legend of Josh Dobbs continues. And because he is tied to arguably the past heaviest team with an extremely inefficient run game and TJ Hawkinson plus Jordan Addison plus the eventual return of Justin Jefferson is why Josh Dobbs can profile as a mid-pack quarterback too moving forward. We should be very impressed with what Josh Dobbs has done. I mean, look at the last couple games. Against Baltimore, Josh Dobbs 24.9 fantasy points in week 8. Week 9, 24.9 fantasy points. In week 4 against San Francisco, 23.4 fantasy points. Against the Giants, 25.2 fantasy points. This is a mid-pack quarterback too, who can become an access quarterback 1 weeks. So Josh Dobbs, give me some Josh Dobbs. You should be picking him up. Everyone, their brother, should be picking up Josh Dobbs, given that Kevin O'Connell is going to give him the pass volume. He's got the weapons, and Justin Jefferson should be back. And look what he was able to do with Scrubs. So Josh Dobbs, who has shown spike weeks this season on a bad Arizona team, now gets a decent enough Minnesota team with better weapons and more pass volume. Give me some Josh Dobbs as a streaming quarterback and possibly a pickup for the rest of the season quarterback, given that Kirk Cousins is out for the year. And I don't anticipate Jaron Hall to steal the job back from Dobbs after what Josh Dobbs was able to do this past week. So yes, go get yourself some Josh Dobbs, pick him up. He is a top 18 quarterback rest of season, barring anything unforeseen. So pick up Josh Dobbs. All right, let's answer some of the comments here. Shout out to y'all. Serendipity Trick Shots. I can add one tight end this week. Should I go with Henry, McBride, Komet, Jonnu, or Schultz? If I'm ranking them this week, that's a toughie. How can we ignore what Dalton Schultz has done? I think you've got to go with Schultz. I think that we go Schultz and then McBride with Kyler Murray back, and then Komet, and then Jonnu, and then Henry. That's how I'd have it set up. But they're all pretty closely clustered, and I wonder if matchups may play a role with those as well. So Serendipity Trick Shots, check out my rankings at bestbellfantasy.com. You can check them out and go to weekly rankings. I haven't updated for week number 10 yet, but that will be up over the next couple days. Before the Thursday games, I'll post my rankings, and then I'll do some updates as we get through to the weekend. Serendipity Trick Shots also said, I'm in dire straits with running backs this week. Algier, Justice Hill, Miles Sanders, Keaton Mitchell. Yikes. If I have to pick any of them out, we're going to go with Keaton Mitchell as the upside play. You have to start thinking that the Baltimore Ravens want to get this guy involved over Justice Hill, even though Justice Hill outsnapped Keaton Mitchell and Gus Edwards combined in this game. You have to like what Keaton Mitchell has done. Miles Sanders is not someone that I'm targeting. It was encouraging that he's going to be ending up finishing around running back 24 or so by the end of the week. But I think Algier has gotten the short end of the stick on this, Justice Hill as well. So give me Keaton Mitchell over those. Gitz, I want to trade for Achane, but I don't know if I should offer. Should I give you my roster? Could you help out? I feel like this is one of those question Gitz that you can ask me on Did It. So if you're unfamiliar with Did It, you can go on to the Did It page. You can there's an app. You can find it in some of my videos, and just download the app, and then you'll get your first call free with me. So go to Did It. You can video chat me. You can share your screen with me, and I can definitely help you out for sure. As I said, the first call is free on Did It, and it's one-to-one video calling, and I can give you advice. And I've got 5.0 ratings, so I'm giving some of the better advice. Also, like, let's just take a step back. Going into week number 9, I was the number 29 best ranker in accuracy out of about 200 rankers in the Fantasy Pros Accuracy Rankings contest. ahead of some of your favorites in the industry. So Bradley's been crushing it this year. I've had some top 15, some top 25 finishes so far. I've just been really consistent. I'm top 8 in tight end rankings going into week number 9. So I'm giving you some of the best advice in the industry, and I really appreciate your support and willingness to try that out. Okay. Ramondre Stevenson or Javonte Williams in PPR. We can't ignore Ramondre Stevenson, not only because of what he just did this past game, right? 22.9 fantasy points. That's great. We love it. But it's also because of the long-term effects. We like what Demario Douglas is doing in that offense. We like what Hunter Henry is doing in that offense. But Ramondre Stevenson is also a massive beneficiary to the loss of Kendrick Bourne and Devontae Parker. Those pieces missing allow for Ramondre Stevenson to get some more work. And also Zeke isn't doing much. Like Zeke is doing okay, fine, but like it's okay. Ramondre is just fine. I like how Javonte has been trending upward. You should too. You should like how Javonte Williams has been trending because before that hip injury, he was really struggling. And then ever since 10, 15, and 27 attempts, and he got the receiving touchdown in that game against Kansas City. So we do like how he's been trending, but the efficiency went significantly down against Kansas City, not only because Kansas City is a tough run defense, right, with Chris Jones smack dab in the middle, but also you have to wonder, is Javonte Williams like built for 25 to 27 carries? I don't know if that's necessarily the case. 5'10", 220 certainly indicates that the BMI should be there, but maybe Javonte Williams, that was just too much for his knee. Remember last year he blew out his ACL and he worked his tail off to get back. But Javonte Williams is a player that, 4.0 yards per carry on the season. 27 of his 90 attempts came in one game. 30% came in one game, and he's played 7 games so far. So certainly disproportionate, only 85 rushing yards in that game. I do anticipate Javonte will continue to be the lead running back for Denver. There's no real going back from that, which is what I said. I said that he's distanced himself before going into week number 8. Javonte was distancing himself from Jaleel McLaughlin in the backfield, but that's going to continue to be the case. However, in full PPR, give me Ramondre Stevenson with the massive workload in the passing game. That's what we want to see. So give me Ramondre. Serendipity trick shot. Should I drop Michael Thomas for Jackson Smith and Jigba or Khalil Shakir? Yeah, so Khalil Shakir, I kind of hit on him already in this waiver wire show. So make sure in your deeper leagues, you're picking up Khalil Shakir until Dawson Knox returns. But Michael Thomas, yikes, no catches, no yards. And he has a 67 PFF receiving grade on the season, 1.36 yards per route run. This is not a player who has shown that he's back to himself. Here's what I would do. I'm not a big fan of JSN, but I would be willing to drop Michael Thomas at this point. Not because I don't like Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas has consistently been between 40 and 65 receiving yards every game outside of the Chicago game. But he's the type of player right now, just lets him be someone else's problem. That's kind of the thing in fantasy is he's not going to be the hot type of player. Look at his game logs. There's nothing to indicate that he's had spike week potential. Derek Carr has been extremely inefficient in throwing the ball, not only to Michael Thomas, but also to Chris Olave and other players. Taysom Hill has emerged. Michael Thomas is a player that lets someone else in your league have to decide whether they're starting Michael Thomas. Don't be the one who has to worry about that. Have a little bit more fun trying to find out if JSN is eventually going to hit or if Khalil Shakir can continue his hot streak, right? this is the type of thing that yes, consistency is there for Michael Thomas, but it's a low floor consistency, not a spike week, ride the wave sort of thing. And there's no indicator to us that we're going to see any changes from Michael Thomas in the near future. Remember, Michael Thomas is going to be turning 31 here in March. So he's not a player that is on the right side of the age curve. He's in an inefficient offense. We haven't seen spike weeks from him. So there are reasons for us to just let Michael Thomas be someone else's problem. So yeah, I'd be willing to take shots on either of JSN or Shakir. Because Shakir's shelf life is going to be short. Just take a shot on him. Same thing with JSN. Maybe this is the week that he spikes. Who knows? All right, everyone. This was a lot of fun. Thanks. If you want to, check out bestbellfantasy.com. Go to the top, go to rankings, and then weekly rankings. I'll have those updated later this week for week number 10. I've been crushing with the rankings. As I said, I'm top 30 so far this year overall, and top 8 in tight end rankings out of over 200 rankers. So check out my rankings there. It's great advice for y'all to be checking out. Also, this is the first episode presented by the Fantasy Football Plus Network. So make sure you guys are checking out that YouTube channel as well. We'll be getting some great things going with the Fantasy Football Plus Network here soon, but I'm excited to be slowly rolling that out with y'all. So make sure you're also checking out Fantasy Football Plus Network as it is being soft launched during this year. And then hopefully, starting in the off season, things are going to be growing. So, Fantasy Football Plus Network is well underway. Make sure you guys are checking out that channel. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, good luck with your waiver wire and your waiver wire bids. And also good luck with Monday Night Football.
I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bell, I'm the best till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bell, I'm the best till into the next world. Guess I got next still.